I have type 1 diabetes. I barely took my insulin for 4 years.
Whoa, let's back up and talk about how insulin restriction can get started in people with type 1 diabetes.
Wait, Ginger, did you know that people with type 1 diabetes are twice as likely to develop an eating disorder than people without diabetes?
Yeah, that's pretty intense, but why? Why does that happen?
I think it starts with food noise.
Food noise? I'm guessing you're not talking about really crunchy chips?
Nope, I'm talking about the constant pressure we're under to obsess over everything we eat.
Oh, okay. So food noise is just when you're constantly forced to think about food and you're constantly thinking about food.
Food noise is exactly what it sounds like. Intense, persistent thoughts about food.
That's such a perfect term. How have I never heard this before?
I think Oprah invented the term food noise. At least that's where I heard it first.
Oprah is pretty cool.
When I heard her say this term, for me, it was like, wow, that's exactly what I'm experiencing.
Okay, so why do people with type 1 diabetes have so much food noise buzzing through their brains?
We have to memorize every nutrition panel.
We have to count the carbs, the fat, the protein in everything we eat.
Every meal feels like work.
Every meal comes with a label. It's either good for diabetes or it's bad for diabetes.
You feel guilty if the meal spikes your blood sugar.
But like anything can spike your blood sugar because we don't produce any insulin.
You get lectures from everybody on what you should and shouldn't eat.
Lectures from your parents, your friends, your doctor, comedians on TV, magazines, random strangers on the internet.
It's so much pressure, constant pressure to eat the perfect things and be on the perfect diet and obsess over every single thing you eat.
And every time we eat, we are trying to estimate tiny doses of a very serious medication. A little bit too much insulin can kill us.
And not getting enough can kill you too.
I know it sounds dramatic, but it's true.
And it's extra hard to manage your weight with type 1 diabetes because, get this, we don't make normal amounts of other hormones that affect your weight.
Yeah, she's talking about amylin, glucagon, ghrelin, somatostatin, and pancreatic polypeptide. It's a lot of sciencey words, but they all play a role in things that can affect weight gain, insulin sensitivity, and blood sugar levels.
Learn more about those other hormones up there in Ginger's other video.
Okay, so you mentioned eating disorders. It sounds like you have quite a story to tell us, Carly.
Unfortunately, yeah, that food noise took over my life in middle school and high school.
You're still working on your recovery today, but you're doing awesome.
Thanks, I'm trying.
All right, Carly, tell us the story.
I didn't know why I've always had such an uneasy relationship with food and my body throughout my entire childhood. I grew up convinced that I just had an unfortunately large appetite for a little girl. I was so self-conscious over something it felt like I had absolutely no control over. I was never overweight. I was an athlete, and I knew I was strong, but even since I was younger, I've always wanted to be smaller in certain places or more lean. Then COVID happened. I wanted to stay fit, is what I told myself. So I hopped on the get in shape during COVID trend. And this is where my 15-year-old disordered brain really started taking over my life. While I was trying to lose weight and maintain that weight loss, I felt like I could only do it by barely eating and over-exercising way too much. It was too hard to keep up with all of that. That's when I started cutting back my insulin and letting my blood sugars run really high. But that made me feel blank, like dull. I didn't feel good. I started using food and binge eating to feel better and ease that dull blank feeling. I would wake up, overslept, didn't eat breakfast, but then I'd think, now I can eat more later. One big splurge to look forward to is what got me through my day. I ate small amounts of food around my family so that they wouldn't question me. They didn't know that after dinner, I was only at the beginning of my daily calorie intake, and that I would spend the rest of the night in my room alone, carefully keeping track of the day's worth of calories I was eating all at once. It was often healthy-ish, low-calorie food, so I could actually eat more for less. Low-calorie protein bars covered in chocolate, fat-free this, low-calorie that, etc.
Okay, so you were binge eating on diet product foods?
Yeah, I was still really worried about eating too many calories, so even after starving myself all day, I would only eat things with nutrition labels to keep count of where I was at. I was binging, but I made sure I wasn't binging enough for my body to gain weight.
Okay, so how did that binge eating get wrapped up with your type 1 diabetes?
Well, it was kind of a mess. And by the way, this all definitely nearly killed me many times. So I'd wake up with high blood sugar from underdosing the night before. Then I would only take a little bit of my insulin, just enough to stay alive. The super high blood sugars killed my appetite, which helped me to avoid eating during the day. I'd be so nauseous from my blood sugars being so high. Then I'd finally take some insulin at night so that I could get hungry again to engage in my addiction of binging. I felt like I needed that at the end of the day. I tell myself, today was a hard day. I need this just tonight. But it became like every night.
Okay, so it sounds like it started as something small that you thought you had control over. And then it just started becoming a bigger and bigger part of your daily life.
Yeah, I tell myself, oh, I'll just skip my insulin just this once because I binged last night. I will stop doing this to myself eventually. I'll stop binging. And then I'll stop wanting to restrict insulin because I stopped binging. I just convinced myself that it wasn't that big of a deal and I'd magically get better someday.
Okay, and this nearly killed you, right?
Yes, I went into severe DKA at least 4 or 5 times.
If you're not familiar with the term DKA, it stands for diabetic ketoacidosis, and it can be deadly. Diabetic ketoacidosis develops when you don't have enough insulin present in your body. Your body starts burning other tissue in a very dangerous and unhealthy way, and it produces high levels of ketones, which are an acid. It's not the same as going on a ketogenic diet. This is life-threatening. But there are different degrees of DKA. You can be in mild DKA, you can have a little bit of ketosis happening, or you can be in severe DKA.
But to be honest, I was on mild DKA a lot of the time at home too. But I always managed to get myself out of it just before I felt like passing out. I only went to the hospital for DKA when it was clear to my parents that they couldn't safely handle the situation. The symptoms that I could usually play down became too severe to hide. My breathing would get heavier, I looked extremely dehydrated, and all of a sudden I would look dangerously emaciated.
Emaciated is a fancy word for dangerously thin.
Yeah, this went on through all of high school.
So by the time Carly got to an inpatient facility that could treat a person with type 1 diabetes and an eating disorder, she was 18 years old and her life was in danger.
The doctor actually said to me, I've never seen anything like this before. You're on death's doorstep.
So Carly's blood work on her liver and her heart said that these organs were actually struggling to function. And then she was diagnosed with osteoporosis at 18 years old. Her bones had become so brittle that they were actually dangerously fragile.
And my vision was crazy. Some days I could see okay. Other days I felt nearly blind. My vision was so blurry from extremely high blood sugars and DKA. I could not see anything.
Yeah, but Carly has come a long way. Today she is 19 years old and she is getting her life back.
Yes, I've been working so hard throughout the past couple of years to navigate through the obstacles that diabetes has thrown my way.
So this might surprise you, but a very big part of Carly's recovery from her eating disorder is thanks to a GLP-1 medication. GLP-1 medications include Ozempic and Mounjaro, and they were specifically designed for people with type 2 diabetes and people living with obesity. But this medication has changed Carly's life. If we go back to all those hormones I mentioned, there's a reason why people with type 1 often feel constant hunger. We don't produce normal amounts of the hormones that tell our brain that we're full, that tell our stomach to digest our food slowly. Those hormones play a huge role in managing and regulating your appetite.
Yeah, starting a GLP-1 probably saved my life, but it was so hard to get it. Thankfully, after multiple attempts, I finally found a way to get the medication through a compounding pharmacy. I'm so happy with the progress I've made in my recovery.
Congratulations, Carly. I'm really excited to see how your life goes from here because it can only get better now that you're taking care of yourself and you're taking your insulin. If you are struggling with food noise, the first thing to do is let someone in your life know. If you're binging and you're skipping your insulin, tell your healthcare team. I know that's a really scary step, but tell your healthcare team. Send them this video. Send your parents this video or your friends. Tell them, I need help. You have to take the first step to get your life